Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Paul and I'm with Paul's Covered Calls. I did the COVID pivot from doggies to dollars. So it's me. Hello, how you doing? I appreciate your time as I share my stories and trades and thought processes and suggestions, all of which I sort of, as I'm ongoing doing covered calls and whatnot, expectations change, yours can too, but at least through some of these presentations, good place to start to tell you where I started. And as this is ongoing, I may post another story as to some of my goals that I've met and new goals that I've added. So thank you for joining me, and here we go. This is the all-important board of dog rectors. So this is myself and Sweet Pea, and we're just going to share elements, limits of covered calls, and a little bit about what a covered call is. So covered call has many elements. The one nice thing is that if you do have 100 shares, which equals one contract, and you have an options chart, covered calls are not scarce. Anyone can do this. So let's get started. What is a covered call? So this graph might be familiar to you. There's some elements on the screen there, but essentially a covered call is you owning the shares. You're going to sell to the open market, essentially in lieu of a rental fee, a fee that you're going to receive. Someone is on the other side buying your open covered call, and they're essentially renting out your shares at a predetermined strike price and a predetermined expiration date. So if the share price exceeds your strike price at the expiration date, in all likelihood it will be assigned. Sometimes it can be, a nuance is that it can sometimes be assigned prior to the expiration date, but that is a rare occasion. And then if the share price is less than your strike price, you get to keep both your rent and your shares. Excuse me. If your stock price drops below your strike, your covered call essentially can minimize your losses, the losses being from your purchase price less the stock price. And conversely, you have this limited profit area where your strike price, assuming your shares are assigned, limits your profit. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a few moments here about what limited profit means. And I have separate presentations on how to, which is the actual buttons that I press in order to sell to open a covered call. Obviously, this is after you've done your analysis, after I've done my analysis on the stocks and the strike price that I decide. Also, I have separate presentation dealing with defensive or out of the money strike prices, and this is a process, a protocol that I like to use when there are stocks that I want to keep, but I still want to make a little bit of money by having these out of the money defensive strike prices. So for a covered call, again, 100 shares equals one covered call. You'll need an options table. If you don't see an options table for the stock that you're interested in, it does not, and you will not be able to participate in covered calls. You have to determine a strike price, a time period, whether that your covered call is for a week, a month, longer than, and there is a definitive expiration date, and you need a brokerage account with covered call permissions. So the next few slides, I'm going to delve more into what does limited profit really mean. And that's something that if you suffer from FOMO, you really do need to recognize this from a personal level when participating in covered calls. Okay, so here's an example of a small limited profit. You set a strike price, your stock is above your strike price, but I've actually have had stock prices be pennies to $1 above my strike price. So this area can be large or small. Let's take a moment to show you what one of my trades actually ended up being. So here's a green slide, it's dealing with the money, and literally I had a strike price at $8.50. The stock closed that Friday on expiration day at $8.54. I truly only lost $4. This was the FOMO, but considering I had covered call, I had a purchase price that was far below my strike price, so I made plenty of money from my covered call, the assignment of my stock, and it more than exceeded the $4. So moving on, what if the strike price is well below where the stock price ended at expiration day? So you have many opportunities to purchase back your covered call, but that's why I personally have a happiness criteria. It may be modest, but if something like this happens to me, I far exceeded this FOMO because I've met my happiness criteria, I've made money on the covered call itself, and I more than likely have made money when the stock was assigned. And I have an example of that coming up. So this is something that actually happened to me where $3.50 times 100, that's $350 that I conceivably left on the table. But I have a good presentation with Nicola dealing with ladders and layerings. And even though there is this difference, and it can be substantial in your eyes, there's $350 that was left on the table. But when you consider my purchase price of the shares, my strike price, I've made money when the shares were assigned, and I also made money with the covered call itself. And so please check out that presentation dealing with Nicola. That was actually, even though you may clutch your pearls with this number, I made substantial dollars even with this happening. And because it met my happiness criteria, I'm happy to do this sort of trade time and time again. So to cover call or not to cover call, that is your choice. For me, I have my happiness criteria set up, and that is in my persona presentation. Modest expectations when I participate in covered calls. I am well aware of what limited profits means. I know that when a stock is assigned, I'm going to miss out on something, but because I've met my happiness criteria, I'm okay with the so-called limited profits. Thanks again for joining me. I have some other videos that delve into the FOMO a little bit deeper, but in the meantime, thanks again for joining me. I'm at Twitter at Paul Called It, paulscoveredcall.com. Please comment, please subscribe. Again, my name is Stephanie Paul. More to come, more to share. And again, just a quick disclaimer, my opinions are my own, my thoughts are my own. The processes, the procedures that I have developed are my own. And maybe for you, it's an opportunity for you to start somewhere in your own process as you delve deeper into covered calls. Thanks so much.